Hello children, in this video lecture I will explain you chapter of Beehive, chapter 9, The Bond of Love, written by Kenneth Anderson. Kenneth Anderson was an Indian-born British writer and hunter who wrote books about his adventures in the jungles of South India. He is remembered mostly for his books on wildlife and his hunts including 9 Man-Eaters and One Rug, The Black Panther of Shivanipalli, and Other Adventures of the Indian Jungle, The Call of the Man-Eater, and Jungles Long Ago. The Bond of Love is a story of love and affection between a human being and an animal. Once the narrator finds an orphan sloth bear and gives him to his wife. As time passes, the narrator's wife and the baby bear share a great bond of love and affection. The bear grows big and needs an open and big space to live. So they decide to give him to a zoo. But both of them cannot bear the separation. They worry and do not eat food properly. Hence, the bear is brought back to the narrator's house and both become happy. Let's know about the characters of the chapter. First, the narrator. He is the writer of the story who found a sloth bear and gifted him to his wife. Narrator's wife. She was a kind woman who loved the bear a lot and treated him like her child. Bruno, a sloth bear whom the narrator found and gifted to his wife. The curator, a zookeeper who take care of Bruno at the zoo and inform the narrator's wife about its condition. The superintendent, a kind-hearted man who allowed the narrator's wife to take Bruno with her. Let's start an explanation of the chapter. Let's understand, first of all, before you read. Can there be love and friendship between human beings and wild animals? Let's check through this story. Let's read a fascinating account of an orphan sloth bear that was rescued by the author. Here in this para, a little bit information about sloth bear is given. Sloth bears inhabit forested areas, including the tropical rainforest of India and grasslands at lower elevations. Sloth bears have very shaggy hair and long muzzles. Using their claws to dig, they can then use their lips to form a tube, which can go deep into the ground or into hard to reach areas like dead trees for their food. Their main food is termites, and you can hear them stuck up their food from several feet away. Let's start understanding of the text. I will begin with Bruno, my wife's pet sloth bear. I got him for her by accident. 2 years ago, we were passing through the sugarcane fields near Mysore. People were driving away the wild pigs from the fields by shooting at them. Some were shot and some escaped. We thought that everything was over when suddenly a black sloth bear came out panting in the hot sun. The author begins the chapter with the narration of his wife's pet. The narrator's wife got a sloth bear as a pet due to an accident. 2 years before the time when this story was written, the narrator and his friends were passing through sugarcane fields near Mysore. Farmers were driving out wild pigs from the fields by shooting at them. Some were shot and some escaped, whichever there. The author and his friends were thought that everything was over when suddenly a sloth bear came out from the fields. It was breathing heavily due to running and excessive heat. Now I will not shoot a sloth bear wantonly, but unfortunately for the poor beast. One of my companions did not feel that way about it and promptly shot the bear on the spot. The narrator says that he would never shoot at a bear without any reason, but one of his companions did, and the bear was shot dead. As we watched the fallen animals, we were surprised to see that the black fur on its back moved and they left the prostrate body. Then we saw it was a baby bear that had been riding on its mother back. When the sudden shot had killed her, the little creature ran around its prostrate parent, making a pitiful noise. The animal lay on the ground, but a part of its furry black body moved. It was a baby bear that had been lying on the mother bear's back. They had killed the mother at that time. It was at the back of the mother. Now the mother bear was dead, and the body got up and crying bitterly. While crying, it started running around the mother's body. I ran up to it to attempt a capture. It scooted into the sugarcane field. Following it with my companions, I was at last able to grab it by the scruff of its neck, while it snapped and tried to scratch me with its long hooked claws. The narrator tried to catch the baby bear. The bear escaped into the sugarcane field. The group chased it, and finally, the narrator caught hold of it from the back of its neck. The bear tried to scratch them with its hook shaped claws. We put it in one of the gunny bags we had brought, and when I got back to Bangalore, I duly presented it to my wife. She was delighted. She at once put a colored ribbon around its neck, and after discovering the cub was a boy, she christened it Bruno. The group stuffed the bear in a gunny bag and took it to Bangalore. The narrator gifted the bear of his wife. She was happy to have it. She tied a colored ribbon around its neck, and as it was a male cub, she named it Bruno. Bruno soon took to drinking milk from a bottle. It was but a step further, and within a very few days he started eating and drinking everything else. And everything is the right word, for he ate porridge made from any ingredient, vegetables, fruits, nuts, meat, especially pork, curry, and rice, regardless of condiments and chilies, bread, eggs, chocolates, sweets, pudding, ice cream, etc., etc., etc. As for drink, milk, tea, coffee, lime juice, aerated water, buttermilk, beer, alcoholic liquor, and in fact anything liquid, it all went down with relish. The bear soon started drinking milk from a bottle. After a few days, it started drinking and eating many things, everything and anything. As it was eating porridge, it means a breakfast of cereal dish made from any ingredients like vegetables, nuts, meat, rice without spices, bread, egg, chocolates, etc. As we can count that many things it started eating. Even it started drinking milk, tea, coffee, aerated water, buttermilk, etc. In fact, anything liquid. The bear enjoyed eating and drinking with great enjoyment. The bear became very attached to our two Alsatian dogs and to all the children of the tenants living in our bungalow. He was left quite free in his younger days and spent his time in playing, running into the kitchen, and going to sleep in our beds. The bear became friendly with the narrator's Alsatian dogs also with the tenants' children who lived in the narrator's bungalow. As the bear was left free when it was young, it played, ran around the house, even into the kitchen, and slept in the narrator's bed. One day, an accident befell him. I put down poison barium carbonate to kill the rats and mice that had got into my library. Bruno entered the library as he often did, he ate some of the poison. Paralysis set in to the extent that he could not stand on his feet. But he dragged himself on his stumps to my wife, who called me. I guessed what had happened. Off I rushed in the car to the vet's residence. A case of poisoning. Damn bear. Barium carbonate. What to do? The author used to keep barium carbonate, a medicine used for killing the rats and mice, in his library. Accidentally, Bruno drank the poison kept in the library to kill rats. Due to it, he was paralyzed and could not stand on its feet. It dragged itself and reached the narrator's wife. She called the narrator and he realized what had happened. He took Bruno in the car to a veterinary doctor. As the narrator was confused what should be done in this case of poisoning, out came his medical books and a feverish reference to Index began. What poison did you say, sir? Barium carbonate. Ah, yes, barium salts. Ah, barium carbonate. Symptoms paralysis. Treatment injections of just a minute, sir. I will bring my syringe and the medicine. A dash back to the car, Bruno still floundering about on his stumps, but cleverly weakening rapidly. Some vomiting, heavy breathing with having flanks and gaping mouth. The doctor took out his medical books and searched the index. Doctor asked the author which medicine ate by the bear. The narrator replied barium carbonate. After listening it, the doctor started searching it in the index for poisoning by barium carbonate. He read the treatment loudly. He read that the treatment was injections. He told the narrator to wait a minute and he took out a syringe and a medicine. At that time, Bruno was still in the car and narrator rushed back to the car. At that moment, Bruno was struggling to move, vomiting, breathing heavily, and his mouth was open. Hold him, everybody. In goes the hypodermic. Bruno squeals. 10 cc of the antidote enters his system without a drop being wasted. 10 minutes later, condition unchanged. Another 10 cc injected. 10 minutes later, breathing less stertorous. Bruno can move his arms and legs a little, although he cannot stand yet. 30 minutes later, Bruno gets up and has a great feed. He looks at us disdainfully, as much as to say, what's barium carbonate to a big black bear like me? Bruno is still eating. The doctor asked everyone to hold Bruno as it screamed. The first dose of 10 cc medicine was injected without dropping a little drop of it. As the medicine not change, did not show any change, another injection of the same dose was given. 10 minutes later, Bruno's breathing eased. It could stand after 30 minutes and ate food. It gave them such a look which showed that it had been fine all the time and as if nothing had happened to it. Another time, he found nearly 1 gallon of old engine oil which I had drained from the sump of the stud backer and was keeping as a weapon against the inroads of termites. He promptly drank the lot, but it had no ill effects whatever. In another incident, Bruno drank the used engine oil which the narrator had taken out of his Studebaker car and had kept to get rid of termites. It drank a lot, but luckily that did not affect Bruno. The months rolled on, and the Bruno had grown many times the size he was when he came. He had equaled the Alsatian in height and had even outgrown them, but was just as sweet, just as mischievous, just as playful, and he was very fond of us all. Above all, he loved my wife, and she loved him too. She had changed his name from Bruno to Baba, a Hindustani word signifying small boy, and he could do a few tricks too. At the command, Baba wrestle or Baba box, he vigorously tackled anyone who came forward for a rough and tumble. Give him a stick and say, Baba, hold gun, and he pointed the stick at you. Ask him, Baba, where is baby? And he immediately produced and cradled affectionately a stump of wood which he had carefully concealed in his straw bed. But because of the tenant's children, poor Bruno or Baba had to be kept chained most of the time. As many months passed, Bruno grew bigger, even larger than the narrator's Alsatian dogs in the size. But still, it was sweet, naughty, and playful like before. He was fond of everyone. The narrator's wife was very fond of Bruno, and vice versa. She changed his name to Baba, which means a small boy in Hindustani language. Baba did not. Baba did some tricks when he was ordered Baba wrestle or Baba box. He would wrestle the person and overpower him. When commanded Baba hold gun, he would point a stick at the person as if ready to shoot him. When asked Baba where is baby, he would take out a piece of wood and cradle it affectionately like a baby. He had hidden the piece of wood under the straw bed as he had grown big. He was chained because he could be a threat to the tenant's children. Then my son and I advised my wife, and friends advised her too, to give Baba to the zoo at Mysore. He was getting too big to keep at home. After some weeks of such advice, she at last consented. Hastily, and before she could change her mind, a letter was written to the curator of the zoo. Did he want a tambier for his collection? He replied, yes. The zoo sent a cage from Mysore in a lorry, a distance of 87 miles, and Baba was packed off. The narrator and his son advised to the narrator's wife to send Baba to the zoo. When his wife was advised by the friends too, she agreed, and a letter was written to the zoo in charge to inquire if he would like to keep a bear at the zoo. He affirmed, and then Baba was sent to Mysore Zoo, packed in a cage, kept on a lorry. He travelled a distance of 87 miles to reach the zoo. We all missed him greatly, but in a sense, we were relieved. My wife was inconsolable. She wept and fretted. For the first few days, she would not eat a thing. Then she wrote a number of letters to the curator. How was Baba? Back came the replies, well, but fretting. He refuses food too. Although everyone missed Baba, but they were relaxed too. The narrator's wife was disturbed. She wept and worried about Baba's well being. Initially, she did not eat or drink. She wrote a letter to the zoo in charge to inquire about Baba. He replied that Baba was also undergoing a similar situation like her. After that, friends visiting Mysore were begged to make a point of going to the zoo and seeing how Baba was getting along. They reported that he was well but looked very thin and sad. All the keepers at the zoo said he was fretting. For 3 months, I managed to restrain my wife from visiting Mysore. Then she said one day, I must see Baba. Either you take me by car or I will go myself by bus or train. So I took her by car. She would ask her friends visiting Mysore to visit Baba and check out on him. Everyone gave a similar report that Baba was fine but appeared thin and sad. The staff at the zoo said that he seemed worried. The narrator controlled his wife from visiting the zoo for 3 months. One day, narrator's wife said that she wanted to see Baba, and if he would not take her, then she would go herself by train or bus. Finally, they went to see Baba at the zoo by car. Friends had conjectured that the bear would not recognize her. I had thought so too, but while she was yet some yards from his cage, Baba saw her and recognized her. He howled with happiness. She ran up to him, patted him through the bars, and he stood on his head in delight. Their friends predicted that Baba would not recognize her, and the narrator had thought so too. But to his amazement, she was a few steps away from the cage when Baba saw her and recognized her. He screamed with happiness. She ran up to him, patted him, and Baba was very happy to have her back. For the next 3 hours, she would not leave that cage. She gave him tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, and what not. Then closing time came and we had to leave. My wife cried bitterly. Baba cried bitterly. Even the hardened curator and the keepers felt depressed. As for me, I had reconciled myself to what I knew was going to happen next. She remained there for 3 hours. The narrator's wife fed Baba different things, which was his favorite, like tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, etc. As the zoo had to close, they had to leave. The narrator's wife did not want to leave Baba, and both of them cried bitterly. Even the zoo in charge was sad. The narrator was fine because he knew that the next step would be take Baba back alone to Bangalore. Oh, please, sir, she asked the curator. May I have my Baba back? Hesitantly, he answered, Madam, he belongs to the zoo and is government property now. I cannot give away government property. But if my boss, the superintendent at Bangalore, agrees, certainly you may have him back. The wife requested the in charge that she wanted to take Baba back. He replied that the bear was government property and that she needed permission from the superintendent in Bangalore. If he agreed, then surely they could take Baba back with them. There followed the return journey to Bangalore and visit to the superintendent's bungalow. A tearful pleading, Baba and I are both fretting for each other. Will you please give him back to me? He was a kind hearted man and consenting. Not only that, but he wrote to the curator telling him to lend us a cage for transporting the bear to Bangalore. They returned to Bangalore and visited the superintendent at his bungalow. She cried and requested that both of them had been worrying for each other. She requested to have Baba back. The superintendent was a kind hearted man and he accepted her request. He wrote to the zoo in charge to arrange a cage for transporting Baba to Bangalore. Back we went to Mysore again, armed with the superintendent's letter. Baba was driven into a small cage and hoisted on top of the car, and the cage was tied securely, and a slow and careful return journey to Bangalore was accomplished. They went to Mysore with the superintendent's letter. Baba was put in the cage, and the cage was kept on the top of the car. It was tied securely, and they returned to Bangalore. Once home, a squad of coolies were engaged for special work in our compound. An island was made for Baba. It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide and was surrounded by a dry pit of or moat 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. A wooden box that once housed falls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep in at night. Straw was placed inside to keep him warm and his baby. The gnarled stump, along with his gun, the piece of bamboo, both of which had been sentimentally preserved since he had been sent away to the zoo, were put back for him to play with. At their home in Bengaluru, a team of workers was employed to execute some work in the backyard. As Baba was full grown bear, he had to be kept isolated, so an island which was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide was built. It was surrounded by a dry pit which was 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. Children, you must have seen similar islands in the zoo where bears are kept. It was made like this because the bear would not be able to cross the pit over the areas that were inhabited by people, as it could be a threat to them. Things which were used by Baba had been kept securely. These were kept on the island again. These things were a wooden box which was previously used to keep cocks and hens and would now be used to Baba to sleep it at night. The same box they kept it over there on an island, and straw was kept in the box to keep him warm. The piece of wood which Baba cradled like a baby, the stick that he used to point a gun, were also placed on the island so that he could play with them. In a few days, the coolies hoisted the cage onto the island and Baba was released. He was delighted and standing on his hind legs. He pointed his gun and cradled his baby. My wife spent hours sitting on a chair there while he sat on her lap. He was 15 months old and pretty heavy too. When the place was ready, the workers placed the cage on the island and Baba was removed from it. He was happy to be free, stood on his back legs, pointed the stick, and cradled the piece of wood. The narrator's wife spent many hours with him as he lay in her lap, although he was 15 months old and was quite heavy in weight. The way my wife reaches the island and leaves it is interesting. I have tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end. Putting one foot in the loop, she kicks off with the other to bridge the 6 foot gap that constitutes the width of the surrounding pit. The return journey is made the same way, but who can say now that a sloth bear has no sense of affection, no memory, and no individual characteristics? The narrator's wife visits Baba frequently, and the way in which she reaches and leaves the island is interesting. They have a rope tied to a mango tree with a loop at the end, and she would place one foot in the loop and kick off with the other. This way, she would fly in the air to cover the 6 foot long distance to reach the island. She would make the return trip in a similar way. On seeing the affection shown by Baba and the narrator's wife, we can conclude that animals have emotions. They remember people, and all of them have individual qualities just like human beings have. So, children, here in this way, this affection story is ended. Now, from this slide, I have provided you all the textual question answers. This all you have to write along with the meanings in your notebook. So, complete it, children, with your legible handwriting. Thank you.